might have noticed I don't quite post as much as I used to. I'm no longer a daily upload channel. I'm sorry. It's just not possible anymore with the effort I put into these videos. It has evolved a long way from when I started doing daily uploads. Now that doesn't mean you won't get a video every day. It just means I can no longer promise one. But exciting news is I am releasing my own website. It will essentially be the exact same thing of this show, but in article format, so it's a little bit easier for everybody to find all the good information that I put inside these videos. Because let's face it, not everybody has 20 minutes to skim through a video to get the information that they're looking for. I think it'll help us get better search rankings, which will in turn get more fans for the show, which means I can do more fun things on the show. So we're going to scale it back here a little bit, but in the end, it's just going to be a huge driving force, and we will get there. So that website is troglysguitarshow.com. It's in its super infancy stages. The only article I have currently is on the modern Flying V, but that's something I'm working on. We'll still do YouTube as well, but that's just kind of a channel update and how we're going about things. Welcome back, troglodytes, to the Trogly's Guitar Show. Today I'm sharing a 1985 Gibson Les Paul Studio Standard. Now we've covered quite a few of these in the past, but a quick recap is the Studio was first introduced in 1983. Now the first 2 years they were actually alder bodies, and then after 1985 they switched back to mahogany. But also at the same time, there was 2 upgrades to the Studio model, the Studio Standard and the Studio Custom. Essentially, the only differences between those is cosmetics. The Studio Standards have single-ply binding on the neck, as well as single-ply binding along the body. The Studio Customs then get multi-ply on the binding and single on the neck. Some of them got ebony boards, but the bulk majority of them are rosewood. But these guitars are very sought after because of one thing. They have a thinner body than a regular Les Paul. If I remember correctly, I think it's 1/8 of an inch. But since this is home to the super heavy guitars, that slightly thinner body helps keep these at a more manageable weight. On top of that, 1983, that's when they started doing 9-hole weight relief. So all those factors thrown in together equals a more manageable weight. Now these things are still heavy, but you're talking about 9 pounds usually. This particular instrument I wanted to share because it's got an interesting color choice from the factory. This is the infamous white on white, and now it has aged to cream on cream. You're either gonna love this guitar or you're not gonna like it very much. They also did Les Paul standards like this in the late 80s. And personally, when I look at these things online, I'm a little bit confused. It's a little bit too much white for me. But now that I've seen one in person, there's almost a really cool Buckethead vibe going on here. Now I don't want to sound like a broken record, Buckethead this, Buckethead that. Honestly, I'm not the world's biggest Buckethead fan. I just happen to like his signature model guitar and the songs I've heard. But I feel like this would be the perfect guitar to buy. Throw a couple of double white pickups in here. You can sometimes find the 496R 500T combos for sale separately. Or you could buy these white toppers. I'll put a link to those in the description. Then just pay somebody to properly install 2 Sanwa kill switches. Get yourself a push-pull, and for under like $300, including somebody modding it, you could have your miniature Buckethead. Obviously, this one has the traditional scale length instead of 27 inches, and you have inlays, and it's rosewood, but I think this guitar would look really sweet as a makeshift Buckethead. So spec-wise, this one will have the mahogany body with the maple top, rosewood fretboard with dot inlays with binding along the neck, and these will have a mahogany neck. The other nice thing about these instruments is they have Tim Shaw PAFs in them. This one still has it, somebody's just removed the pickup covers for some reason. Being a Studio Standard, it came stock with chrome hardware. I think this would look really cool with gold hardware as well. So overall, I definitely do suggest checking out a Studio Standard or a Studio Custom. They've been kind of getting pricey, but when you can pick these up for around $1,500, they are a great value. Not only do you have an older guitar that kind of looks cool, but you also have one that has pretty much the exact same electronics as a higher end custom. And honestly, some people prefer dot inlays as long as they have binding. So now that we've learned a little bit more about this Gibson Les Paul Studio Standard, let's go ahead and hear how one sounds. We know how this instrument sounds, let's go ahead and review its condition. The Studio Standard's actually in pretty good shape, but we do have quite a bit to go over here. Face of the headstock, everything is in pretty good shape here. You've just got your average string change wear, as long as some edge wear. Your truss rod functions perfectly, no worries there. And your neck is also straight. The frets show very minimal wear, nothing you're going to have to worry about. And the rosewood fretboard is in good shape. It's a nice dark brown color. It's not black like sometimes you'll get, and it's not too rosy. It's got a nice complementary color to the finish. Speaking of the finish, the original white has aged to this beautiful cream color. It's kind of got a Randy Rhoads vibe, but you can see that the binding is a different shade of cream. It's kind of hard to see, but there are some light impressions on the top, so it's just got your average player's wear. But there are a few things we need to go over. The tailpiece, it looks a little bit shinier than the rest of the chrome hardware, and the back does not look like what I would expect, so we're going to say that's been replaced. You do still have your original bridge though. The pickups appear to be original Tim Shaw PAFs, but I'm going to say this neck pickup has been rewound. The reason why I'm saying that is on the back here, you notice the base plate screws are missing. And the tape no longer covers the whole thing, so you can actually see how it's constructed. One of the identifying characteristics of a Shaw is that white spacer. So something has happened to that. It's missing its base plate screws, but it still functions perfectly fine. It sounds good, but I do want you to know that's been messed with. Bridge pickup, it's completely the way it should be though. It's just the covers have been removed from both of them. The back of the headstock, I'm not really sure what's going on here. We've got a serial number of 83455513, which makes it a 1985 model. But you notice how this side of the headstock is kind of a more white color? Now it is possible that this side of the headstock was just shaded and everything else got sunlight, like it was sat by a window for a long period of time. But usually when you see discrepancies in finishes like that, there'll be some type of repair. Now looking under Blacklight, I do not see any evidences of any repairs. But the only repair I could potentially see there is if it was like a wing repair. But if you get it in the light just right, you can see that the main white area, I mean, especially like here, it almost looks like there's just an overspray there. Like maybe the wing was separating, but the wing does not line up with that area. So I'm not sure what's going on here. I really don't suspect any foul play. I think it's just a weird aging thing. But just for the sake of everybody being on the same page, let's say the wing has been repaired and there's been some touch up, but no actual headstock break, crack, or repair. You can see you've got a small little finish check line right there. Looks like some stand hanger rash right there. The neck is a nice 60s profile. It's got a nice little bit of roundedness to it. Not a lot of wear to go over there. And the back just has some minor buckle worming marks. So overall, this thing is actually in pretty good shape. Inside the back control cavity, it looks like somebody installed a new ground wire. So no big deal there, but you do have the original pots in here and everything else is looking good. Along the edges, you can see you've got some finish checking lines here. There's kind of a ding in the binding right here. It doesn't really affect play, but it might annoy you cosmetically. We've got the thick binding here. This did originally ship with a pickguard. You can see you've got one there as well as there. And if you look at it just right, you can see the outline of a pickguard, but it's not so obvious that you'd have to put a pickguard on right away. But the holes are there if you want to put one on. You still have your original strap buttons and just your average light edge wear here. So overall, it's a played example, and really the only major thing here is down here, it looks like this guitar got dropped at one point in time. You see how the finish is kind of smashed right there, and you can see through to the wood? What I'm guessing is this was sitting up on a stand, like not too far up, but it fell and went chink. And in that process, I don't know if you saw this earlier, there's some finish checking here by these knobs. Typically, when a guitar gets dropped, you'll see finish checking in these areas. You'll see them by the posts as well as by the screws, because essentially what's happening is the law of motion. An object in motion wants to stay in motion. So as it abruptly stops, these things are still moving, and that can usually cause some cracks, generally just in the finish. This one's definitely just in the finish. There's no flexing there, but you do have some finish checking there. But all in all, that little bit of damage will help keep the price of this one way lower than it would normally be. Now we'll do a quick blacklight test here. You can see everything on the face of the guitar is glowing the way you would expect to see. Nothing really too much to go over here. The speed knobs might have been replaced. Around 1985, they changed whatever materials they were using, and they kind of stopped aging, but these almost look modern to me. But finish-wise, everything's good there. Take a look around the edges here. Everything's looking good. So this tells you that those finish check marks are strictly just in the finish and not an actual crack. What helps you determine that is if the finish was broken anywhere, like it would glow dark, and that would signify there's something that you need to be worried about. You can kind of see that right here where the finish broke a little bit when it was dropped. But the back is also in good shape here. Take a quick look at the neck. Nothing too much to go over here. But here you can see under Blacklight, it glows evenly, but the color is just a little bit different. It's almost like something got spilt on here and it just kind of wiped some of the original clear coat off. It's kind of strange. Again, I can't 100% explain it, but I do want you to know about it, because the face of the headstock is perfectly fine. This instrument does come in a 70s Gibson case. It's not the original one, but could be seen as error correct. Usually when you see these types of clasps, it comes from the mid-70s. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4 functioning latches. You still have your handle here. The interior is a nice red color. There's not a lot of padding to this style of case, and honestly it smells a little bit musty. This originally had one of those Gen 3 chainsaw cases. I swapped it out for this one because I needed that for a different guitar, but hey, that allows me to offer it for a cheaper price. If you think you might be interested in being the next owner of this white studio standard, feel free to check out the reverb listing or on troglysguitarshow.com. Thank you, Troglodytes, for tuning in. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you on the next episode. Take care.